Thank you for
All right.
joining us for this webinar, Canine Artificial Insemination, Managing the Fresh Chilled Semen Shipment. My name is Shelly. I'm the content manager at Revival Animal Health. And today we have Revival's Director of Veterinary Services, Dr. Marty Greer. She will be sharing her knowledge on canine artificial insemination, semen shipping, and more. Again, we do want to give a quick disclaimer on this webinar that some of the images and videos shown during the presentation are graphic in nature, just due to the nature of the topic. So just wanted to give a disclaimer on that. Dr. Greer has more than 40 years of experience in veterinary medicine with special interests in canine reproduction and pediatrics. She received her Doctor of Veterinary Medicine from Iowa State University in 1981, and she's served as Revival's Director of Veterinary Services since 2019. So thank you so much again for joining us today, Dr. Greer.
Thanks, and thanks for being here. I hope that this is a really enlightening topic for people. A lot of people are not familiar with the ways to package and ship fresh chilled semen, so we're going to go through some details on that. It is possible for you to do this yourself. It is possible for you to work with a veterinarian for this. So you can do it either way. And I think it's a really great opportunity for people to start expanding their opportunities for genetics so that you don't have to buy another stud dog every time you want to breed another generation. It's a really great way for you to do this. I did my first fresh chilled semen litter breeding for myself. It was the very first one we'd ever done about 25 years ago. So we've been doing this for a very long time, and it's a wildly successful technique. It's pretty great. So just as a disclaimer, I do speak for Purina. I do speak for Royal Canin. I am on the board for Embark. I obviously work for Revival Animal Health. So just so you know that any comments that I make should be accepted as what they are. If you missed any of the previous information about how to collect or how to do an insemination, those are already done. So we're going to just very briefly cover those today because we really want to focus on the semen shipment. So if you are going to do a semen shipment, there's some supplies that you need to get ordered in advance of the time that you need this, unless you're working with a veterinarian that has these supplies available. If your vet does this already, great. They can provide you with a box and the extenders and the ice packs and all the things that you need with it. If not, please get your supplies ordered in advance. If you're planning on having semen shipped to you, have the box with the extender shipped to the veterinarian or the facility where they're going to be collecting the semen and shipping it to you. If you're going to be shipping semen out, then go ahead and get your box, your extender, all the things that you need. But you can't order this the same day that you need it. So please plan ahead. The last thing in the world you want to be doing is scrambling to get a shipment out to you and then missing a breeding because you weren't equipped to go ahead and do this. We often have big stacks of these boxes sitting in our practice, but not every veterinary clinic does fresh chilled semen shipments. So if you're counting on a veterinarian to do it, go ahead and order it. If you're counting on one of your co-breeders, your fellow breeders to do this, get the box, the extender, all the supplies that you're going to need ordered in advance. And we're going to go through those items that you're going to need. When the box arrives, please stop, open the package, and read the instructions. Because if you're not paying attention to the supplies that are coming in for you, when you are ready to use this, you might not be prepared because there's some things that have to be done in advance. So be sure that you're paying attention to the details. So exactly follow the directions. Don't go off the rails. Don't think that, oh, I've done this before, I don't need to read the instructions. Please make sure that you're paying attention because you're paying for a stud fee, you're paying for a shipment, you're paying for all these things. And if you miss a breeding because you weren't detail oriented, then you're going to miss the possibility of getting a pregnancy. So some of us are better at pre-planning. Some of us are better at reading instructions. If you know inherently that you're not good at this, have somebody else looking over it with you. Make sure that you're paying attention to the details, because if you're not detail oriented, this will not go well for you if you're not planning. So we're going to talk about how to handle the supplies, talk about collecting, extending, packaging the semen, and then insemination today. So when the package arrives, if you get the big box with the stuff in it, you're going to have the box with the semen that the semen shipment will go in. That'll be inside. Open that interior box, the one that has the dog on the outside of it, this one. Open that up. There's going to be a gel pack in there, and then pay attention to the order in which things are already packaged into that box. Take the gel pack, put it in your refrigerator. Do not freeze this gel pack, refrigerate it, and have it ready to go. The extender should be room temperatures for storage. You don't have to freeze it. You don't have to refrigerate it. And don't make up the extender when it arrives. You don't want to make up the semen extender until you're ready to ship. So essentially what we do is collect the semen, process the semen, put the extender in it, put it in the box, and ship it out. So don't make up your semen extender until the day you're going to use it. Like I said, make sure you put the cold pack in the refrigerator. And don't think that you can cheap out and substitute a vaccine packing box or other kind of ice packs. These that we carry at Revival are specifically made for this. So the temperature control, all the things that need to happen in it need to be appropriate. So just trying to substitute another piece of equipment isn't going to get what you want. Make sure you keep the box clean, the supplies clean, and then remember where you put them. Sometimes we're so good at tucking things away so that we'll remember where we put it that we forget. So put the box inside of a bag to keep it clean, put it in another box. You want this to be nice and clean when you're shipping semen. You don't want this to be kind of half-baked and kind of messy. So once you get to the point of needing to do the extender, then you're going to want to reconstitute the extender. Now, there are different kinds that we carry at Revival. They're all good for most dogs. There are a few dogs that do better in one kind of extender than another, but in general, any extender that you have that's labeled for a dog is going to be fine. Don't substitute horse extender. If you have a dog, use dog extender. If you have a horse, use horse extender. Typically cattle and pigs, we don't do any of this with. So it's mostly going to be dogs and equine that we're talking about today. And they will come with a special bottle of the diluent and a special packet with the extender that needs to be reconstituted. When you get ready to reconstitute it, make sure that everything is clean, that you've got everything ready to go, and then follow the instructions. The packaging is already pre-measured. So the entire packet of extender powder goes into the bottle. So don't try to monkey around with the ratios and that kind of thing. And if you're ordering one and you have the choice of ordering the kidney with an antibiotic and one with an antibiotic, use the one with the antibiotic. It just gives you a little bit of a level of protection for the female, because we know that semen doesn't come out of the stud dog sterile. So when you get ready to do this, you want to get ready to reconstitute it. So you want to shake the pouch so that all the powder is down in the bottom so that you don't spill it. You cut or tear the packet open, pour the powder into the bottle, and then shake it gently, invert it. Don't, this is not paint. Invert it gently and then let it sit for 20 minutes because we don't want it bubbly. We don't want it all weird. So just mix them gently, roll it between your hands, invert it a few times, get it nice and mixed, but don't go nuts. Once you get the semen collected, and we've done the semen collection videos already, you want to try to collect only the first and second fractions of the ejaculate. The third fraction, which is the clear part, you don't need all of it. So you collect the first and second fraction. The first fraction is hard to not collect because if you don't have the sleeve on the dog at the time he starts to ejaculate, you may miss part of the second fraction. The second fraction is the part that has the semen in it. So it goes prostatic fluid, sperm-rich fraction, prostatic fluid. You only need parts 1 and 2. Once the fluid starts to run down the sleeve, and I usually use clear sleeves so I can see, once you see it run clear, pull the sleeve off, let him finish ejaculating onto the floor, and then just use that portion. Now, if you get quite a bit of an ejaculate, you'll want to centrifuge it so that you only send the good part. If you only get 1 or 2 cc's, you probably don't need to centrifuge. But if you get 6 or 8 cc's, you're going to want to centrifuge it before you put the extender into it. So don't extend the semen until you've centrifuged it. You should have a centrifuge that you can adjust the speed on. So you want one that goes to 1,000 RPMs. This is different than the speed you're going to centrifuge blood at. So if you're buying a centrifuge, get one with a rheostat on it that allows you to adjust the speed. RPMs is how many times a minute it goes around. And we want to use a fairly gentle spin for our semen. We don't want to make it all dizzy and weird. We want to just do a low speed, which is 1,000 RPMs for about 5 minutes. That's going to push all the sperm to the bottom of the tube and all the clear fluid to the top. You'll typically get just a little button, a little pellet, like maybe a 1/2 inch tall in the bottom of your centrifuge tube. So that's all you're going to need for the good stuff. The rest of the fluid can be eliminated. Now, when I pull that out, I will put it in a separate tube. I won't just put it down the drain in case for some reason I need that prostatic fluid. I usually don't. but set it aside in case for some reason you need it. When you take the tube out of the centrifuge, very gently lift it out and then pull the fluid off the top. Don't put your pipette all the way down into the bottom and disturb that pellet. You want the semen to stay in the bottom. You want to just put the pipette very gently into the top of the tube, pull out the clear fluid. When you start disrupting the pellet at the bottom, stop taking out the fluid, and that's when you add your extender. So leave the pellet of semen in the bottom of the tube, and it should be a soft pellet. If you've spun it really hard, it's going to be really firm and you're going to damage the sperm. So spin it gently and just have a nice soft pellet in the bottom. When you go to add your extender, your semen and your extender should be at similar temperatures. They don't have to be exact, but if you have room temperature semen, which is fine, you can add room temperature extender. If you have warmer semen, add warmer extender. Don't add cold extender like refrigerated extender into the sperm that's already at room temperature or body temperature. That's going to be too much of a cold shock for it. And you want to very carefully trickle the extender down the side of the inside of the tube so that you don't shock the sperm. Never, ever, ever microwave your sperm. Never, ever, ever microwave your extender. Don't do that. You can warm it in warm water. You can warm it inside your pocket, but don't microwave it. And then the general ratio is about 1 part of semen to 2 to 4 parts of extender. So if you have 1 cc of semen, you'll put in 2 to 4 cc's of extender. That's all you need. You don't need a gallon of this stuff, and you don't need to collect a gallon of the of the ejaculate. All you need is the good part. So trickle it down, cap the tube, and then very gently mix your semen with the extender. So again, with a very tight cap on the tube, gently invert it a couple of times. Don't shake it. Very gently invert it a couple of times so that you very carefully mix it. Don't want bubbles, don't want it shaken. And then the rest of your extender, if you don't use it all, which you won't if you make up a 40 cc or 20 cc amount, you can put that into your freezer, put the date on it that you made it up, put it in your freezer. And when you go to ship semen the next time, that extender is still going to be useful for you. So again, you'll want to warm it up gently. Don't microwave it. Put it at room temperature or in a warm water bath. Now, you're going to want to put some tape or something around the top of your tube to seal it. And then you want to put your tape into a whirl pack. We carry these on the Revival Animal Health website. They're called whirl packs for a reason, and I'll show you in a second. They come like this. They come in different sizes. I have little ones. I have bigger ones. So I have 2 because I'm going to put the tube inside the small bag. Then I'm going to put the small bag into the big bag because invariably, if you ship this and something happens and the semen leaks, you don't want it leaking into the bottom of the styrofoam box. You want it leaked into this bag so that you have the chance to still use the extender. And trust me, we have that happen every now and then. When you get a whirl pack, you want to take the top off. It just pulls off. You pull these 2 tabs apart and it opens up the bag. And then we're going to pretend this pen is a tube because the tubes are hard to see. You're going to drop this in, and they're called a whirl pack because we whirl them. So we whirl it around. We then fold the metal tabs over the tube, and then we're going to put it in a bigger bag. So again, we're going to open our second bag, open it up, drop this bag into that. And then again, we're going to whirl it. Woo, woo, woo. So it's called a whirl pack because we whirl it. These were made for milk samples on dairy cows, but we use them for lots of other samples. So you fold the tabs over. Now this is ready to put into your box. So it's got a cap on it. It's got the cap sealed with tape. It's in a small whirl pack, and then it's in a big whirl pack. So this is going to secure the package so that if there is a leak for some reason, you can still use the semen when it arrives. Very important that you do that. All right, so we have a little video here of our box. Now, this is a box that's been around. It's been used before, and you can reuse the boxes. You can reuse semen boxes for semen. Don't reuse them for other things. So there's our whirl pack. She's folding it over. And then it goes into this styrofoam sleeve that then will protect. Again, that's another layer of temperature protection. The box comes like this. You put that horizontally in the box. You don't want it standing up. You want it laying horizontally in the box because that allows the extender to stay in contact with the sperm the whole time. Then you put on the styrofoam sleeve. Then you put the gel pack that's refrigerated, then the top of the styrofoam box, and then you lock it together, and that's ready to go. So it's very simple to pack this box. Those are the steps you have to go through. Very easy. And again, these are all going to be things that you can go back to the Learning Center and watch this again if you forget any part of it. So easy peasy, easy to pack, and then you need to ship it. So before you put the tube in the box, be sure you label the tube. Put the name of the dog on it that you're sending it to, put the name of the owner that you're sending it to, put the breed on it, especially if this is going to a veterinary clinic, because in clinics like ours, they may get several semen shipments a day, and you don't want to put Newfoundland semen into a toy poodle. You want to make sure Newfoundland semen goes to Newfoundland and toy poodle semen goes to toy poodle. So label the tube very carefully. Make sure you do that. Make sure everything is double bagged, and then make sure that your semen is in the very bottom of the box. Then with your styrofoam, then with your ice pack, which is chilled, not frozen, and then the top of the box. Easy peasy. So cap the tube, seal it, put it in a bag, fold it over, and then place it horizontally. Make sure, like I said, that you're labeling your tube, because we don't want any mistakes to happen, especially if it goes to a vet clinic. So be very specific about labeling. And then put your refrigerated block on top. You don't want to put a frozen ice pack directly against the semen. That's going to be too cold. And make sure you're using your foam plate in there. That's supposed to be mailed in that package. So if you're shipping the semen to another friend of yours, or to a colleague, or to a co-owner, or to a vet clinic, make sure that you put in the AKC paperwork or other registry if you're not registering with AKC. Instructions on how to do the insemination, tape it securely, and then make sure you ship it overnight. And if you're shipping on weekends, make sure you put a little mark, the little X in the Saturday box, or it'll show up on Tuesday. Make sure you're marking everything correctly. Now, unfortunately, with the advent of all the extra shipping that happened during COVID, we no longer have quite the same level of service that we do for overnight shipments. Doesn't matter if it's UPS, FedEx, or the US Postal Service. They tend not to be quite as willing to guarantee overnight delivery. So we have to do the very best we can. Like I said, make sure you bag everything. And if it does leak, then you just open the bag with it upright, put your pipette down into the bottom, pull out the extended semen, and go ahead and inseminate. Because if you're in a whirl pack, these are sterile when you get them. So you're okay if this leaks, it's still going to be a sterile container. So if you're doing Saturday delivery, be absolutely sure you're putting Saturday request on the box. FedEx has one, UPS has one, the Postal Service has one. Be sure you're marking it, because honestly, I'm going to guarantee you, if you don't, it's not guaranteed to get there on Saturday, even if you ask them to. So I'm going to ask you one more question, and that's, I'm sure all of you have seen the FedEx logo on the truck, on the box, lots of places on the commercials, but I'm going to ask you if you've ever seen the arrow in the FedEx logo. And if your answer is what do you mean, what arrow? It's been in every FedEx logo that you've ever seen. It looks like this. And now every time I look at a FedEx truck, I have to stop and look at it and see if the arrow is really there. Isn't that interesting how that arrow is hidden in there? You don't really notice it, but there's something about movement about that logo that makes you inspired. I don't know who developed this logo, but it was really brilliant. They should pay them a lot of extra money for that. Okay, so our finished package looks like this, with a sticker on the top, US Postal Service, FedEx, UPS. In our community, there's something called speedy delivery. So there are other smaller courier systems that are out there, depending on where you live. Those are all fine to use as long as they can do next day. You don't want to delay this. This isn't next week. This is next day. Once you've got everything packaged and you've got the label on it, you want to call the clinic that's going to, or the owner of the semen, or owner of the bitch that you're sending semen to, give them the tracking number, the method of shipment. And we're still now starting to put air tags into the box, because when UPS, FedEx, or the Postal Service tells you where it is, they're not actually telling you that they know where that box is. They're telling you where that box is supposed to be. So if it got left off the truck someplace, then you're not going to know. But if you put an air tag in the box, and if this is a friend of yours, air tags are $25. Have them mail it back to you. It's a pretty handy way to be able to track the semen more effectively. All right. So procedures for collecting canine semen for shipping. Like I said before, I always use a clear sleeve, a clear tube, so that I can see what's coming into it. If I see urine, if I see blood, if I see anything that I don't like, if it starts to run clear, then I'm going to pull that off. We don't want urine in our ejaculate, so we don't let the male dogs urinate just prior to the time that they're collected. We always want them to have a full bladder. If there's blood, sometimes that happens from trauma from the penis. Sometimes it happens if it's an older dog because of the prostate. So if you see blood, you can still use the semen, but try to avoid using it if you can. And if you do see blood or urine, add extender as quickly as possible to that ejaculate so that you can get the semen protected from that extra fluid. You want to make sure you have all your supplies out. I like the sleeves that are on the right-hand side. There's no tube in those, and so it's less traumatic for the male dog. We've got a lot of our supplies out here. When we collect the semen, you can just collect it at room temperature and you don't have to keep it warm. So you don't have to run around like a crazy person with it in your shirt or with it in on a heating pad or any of those things. You can just use regular room temperature. Is fine for it to sit at for an hour. You want to use a teaser female if you have one, because he's always going to collect a better sample if there's a female around. Yes, many male dogs will collect semen without a bitch, but you're always going to get about 50% more semen with a teaser. So even if she's not in heat, a girl is always better than no girl, as long as she's not threatening to bite him. If you have low libido or low sperm count, you don't want to just ship that semen without calling the people who are the recipient first. You want to know, okay, I really didn't get a very good collection. Do you still want me to spend the money on a shipment? Or do you want to switch dogs? Do you want to switch to a different kind of insemination? Do you want to make a change? So before you spend the money on the shipment, and the shipment costs depend on where it's going to, how many zip codes away you are, and if you're doing a Saturday delivery, a holiday delivery, any of those things. So ask before you go, because those semen shipments cost between $100 and $200. So this is one of my dogs. We're using a female that is clearly not his female. So we're not breeding him to her, but she is our teaser. So we're going to use her as the way that we're going to tempt him to collect semen for us better. We always get better collections, like I said, if we do that. So this is my dog. He's standing up on a table so that it's easier because he's a little short guy. We're going to exteriorize his penis, put it into the sleeve, and then we're going to ejaculate. And you'll be able to see he's pretty enthusiastic. He's done this lots of times. He knows what he's there for. Basically, we don't have to do a lot of stimulation with a dog with this kind of libido. We just have to keep the sleeve on the penis until we get a nice collection. And then, like I said, when the semen starts to run clear, then I'll typically pull the sleeve off and put him down on the floor and let him finish his ejaculation. So she's just pulling the sleeve down. You can see in the bottom of the sleeve that there's some semen that's being collected. Yes, it's a little bubbly from his enthusiasm, but we're not going to shake it any more than we have to. He still hasn't fully ejaculated, so she's giving him a little bit of time. So sperm rich fraction is always the second portion, so it runs clear. Then we get the cloudy portion. And then we'll go back to clear. Now you see if there was a tube in here and he had his penis all the way down into that, the tube could cause some trauma to his penis. You can see how nice that looks now. There's a nice cloudy portion to it. And like I said, we don't need a lot of semen. If we do something like a German Shepherd, German Shepherds they'll ejaculate 20 or 30 cc's of fluid. We don't need that much. We only need about 1 cc of the really good part. So you don't have to collect the entire ejaculate. You just want to make sure that you've gotten the cloudy portion. And you can see how nice and cloudy that is. That's the sperm rich fraction. That's what we want. All right. So that's all we need to do with that. So once he starts to ejaculate, you'll get the clear, you'll get the milky white, then you'll get the clear. So that's all you need. When you're exteriorizing the penis, you should be wearing gloves. These are photographs from online. We exteriorize the penis before we want it to be erect so that it's more comfortable for the dog. Then we'll slip the disposable vagina on the penis with some digital pressure around the bulb, and then we'll go ahead and collect. This is, I think, a Great Dane. So you can see he's a much bigger dog, and we don't want to put his penis all the way down against that tube because of trauma to it. So we're careful. Here's another collection. We do this all the time. And then, like I said, the cloudy part is the way we want, the part we want to collect. And then when you apply a lubricant to his penis, when you're done collecting, you want to put on something that's non-spermicidal. So be sure you're reading the directions. Priority Care is non-spermicidal. We've had some products say that they're non-spermicidal and they're not. So I'm pretty careful with what I use. So Priority Care is my preference. This is a normal appearance to a dog that's got an erect penis. The bulb is extended. And this is a normal size and normal shape. This is a beagle, and this is obviously a good sized penis, but that's normal for this dog. I avoid the latex sleeves and I avoid spermicidal jelly. Latex is impossible to get sterile, and any disinfectant that you use is likely to cause the semen to be damaged. So I don't use any equipment that's not disposable. Latex sleeves are not disposable, so we use disposable ones. And please don't try to wash them and use them again. Just throw them away. If the dog has poor libido, if the semen quality is poor, if there's blood in the ejaculate or urine, if the dog has any medical condition, call before you ship. All right, so at this point, you want to perform the sperm count and morphology before you add the extender. Some extenders are cloudy, and that's going to interfere with your ability to get a good sperm count. To do a sperm count, you need a microscope, slides, and a cover slip. If you're going to do it manually, you need one of the counting cuvettes. If you're going to use the iSperm, we'll talk about that at our next visit. But we do have a short, I'll just show you what the equipment looks like. This is the iSperm itself. It comes as basically a device that you add to the iPad. And these run around $3,000. They're not terribly expensive. The CASA systems that most veterinary clinics have, if they don't have this one, are going to be between $30,000 and $50,000. So a $3,000 sperm counter is pretty effective. And if you're doing these even a couple times a year and your vet doesn't have the ability to do a sperm count, or they're going to charge you a lot of money for it, sometimes it's worth spending the money to get one of these iSperms. You may find you have other people in your community that want to use it. If you're doing horses, it's obviously worth it. So it's a really great piece of equipment and very easy to use. If we're going to do morphology on our semen, we want to put our semen on the slide, let it dry, and then stain it in the 3-step process. So again, we're going to go through that in more detail next time that we meet on November 7th. We're going to need to look for a couple of things under the, for the semen analysis. We want to look at the volume. So how many cc's did he ejaculate? We'll need that to calculate our sperm count. We're going to want to know the color of it. Was it clear? Was it yellow? Was it cloudy? It should be cloudy. It shouldn't look like pus. It shouldn't look like urine. It shouldn't look like blood. So what did it look like? And then what's our sperm count? What's our morphology or motility? Those are things that we all want to answer about our semen. Under the microscope, you have to do the morphology yourself at this point. The iSperm does not do morphology. I suspect down the road they'll have AI to do this because we have AI for so many things now. So under the microscope, we want to look at the size, the shape, the character of the sperm. And so a normal sperm should have a little hat on it, or a little head called an acrosome. Then there's the head, then there's the midpiece or the neck, and then there's a tail. So these are just different kinds of lighting that show how the sperm looks under that. And then when it's stained, we can see additional details. This is a dog with a proximal droplet. So the thing on his neck, so you see the head of the sperm, that wider part of the neck should not be that large. That's called a proximal droplet. That means one of two things. Either one, his semen quality is starting to deteriorate, or two, he was really recently ejaculated and he's kind of maxed out on how often he should be ejaculated. If we see a detached head, that's bad. That means that the tails are detached. That can be genetic. That can be from too hot a temperature or too cold a temperature. This is a sperm that can't swim. And if you can't swim, you can't fertilize an egg. So this is not going to be a good sperm. Coiled tails, we see a lot of tail defects. These are secondary. These typically don't interfere with fertility. And again, this can be related to other kinds of conditions. Some dogs will get better if we put them on L-carnitine for this kind of defect. So if you're seeing these, you want to make sure that you're making note of that and discussing this with your veterinarian. If we see blood, we can see blood either from trauma to the penis or from the prostate. If it's a dog over age 5 to 7, it's probably a prostate issue and you want to speak to your veterinarian about it. If it's from trauma, just be really careful the next time you collect them so you don't end up with blood. Now, blood does not interfere with fertility in the female dog. It does in horses. So it's different for a horse than it is for a dog. No place do we want blood, but if we do have it, we just add extender and then spin it down, get rid of that blood, and then add your extender again. And then, of course, call before you ship the semen to make sure that people still want it. And then to assess longevity, in other words, how long does the sperm last once it's ejaculated, you can keep just a tiny bit of your sample back in your refrigerator, 1 or 2 drops. And then the next day, when they should be receiving the shipment, you can pull your drop out, warm it up, look under the microscope, and determine if it was a problem with the shipment, that, for instance, it got too cold or too hot during shipment, or if it's a problem with the dog. If he doesn't extend well enough to still have swimming sperm 24 hours later, he's not a good dog to be shipping semen. And those are things that you can test in advance of the time that you ship so that you can tell people that he ships well or does not ship well. If he doesn't ship well, use a different dog. If he does ship well, then go for it. But there are times that the temperature gets super cold or super hot. And so that can damage the semen and shipment. So you'll be able to securely tell people that he ships well. I think there was a problem with the shipment. Do you want me to ship again? In really cold weather, we'll use a thermos, a stainless steel thermos on the outside of the tube so that it keeps the semen a little bit more at an ideal temperature during shipment, because when it gets to be 20 below zero, it's pretty tough on sperm shipping. Like I said before, if you have too much ejaculate volume, you want to centrifuge at less than 1,500 to 1,500 RPM. So spin that down, and then you can add your extender to that. All right, artificial insemination. Timing with any breeding is everything. We know that for lots of good reasons. If you are timing your own females with your own progesterone testing, make sure that you're using a non-barrier tube. If you use the tubes that have that gel in them, that affects the progesterone level. So don't use those tubes. Make sure that you are using quantitative progesterones. That means a progesterone level that gives you a number, 2.7, 18.4, not blue dot, pink dot, bluer than yesterday, pinker than yesterday. Those are not accurate enough for the kind of shipments that we're doing. And remember that we breed bitches 2 to 3 days after ovulation. They don't ovulate a mature egg. We want to breed 2 days after they reach 5 for their progesterone, so that they should be in that 8 to 15 range nanograms per milliliter when we do the insemination. When the semen arrives, if you are the recipient or the veterinarian's the recipient, you want to take the package, open up the package, take the tube out, warm up 1 drop. You don't have to warm up the whole tube. Warm up 1 drop on your wrist. If you don't have a heating pad, on your heating pad. If you have a microscope with a heated stage, that's pretty fancy. That all works. But if you don't have anything, just lay the slide on your wrist. You're at body temperature, quickly warm it up, pop it under the microscope and take a look. So all you have to do is warm up 1 drop. The rest of the semen can stay at that chilled temperature. And when you're ready to use it, the bitch will warm it up. So I don't worry about warming semen. She's at the perfect body temperature, so you don't have to do that. Before you use the semen, you want to, again, gently invert that so that the semen is mixed evenly with the extender. No shaking. I'm sure the UPS truck has done plenty of that for you. So just take a small drop, put it under the microscope and see. And then when you're ready to use the semen, you want to put your pipette with your syringe on it down into the bottom of the tube, pull it up, don't use extra air, and then let the bitch warm up the semen. So here's a tube with extender in it, a semen extender. I've got the pipette on the syringe. You'll notice that the syringe does not have a latex black stopper in it. It's clear because there is no stopper. We don't want any latex. We're going to pull that entire amount up into the pipette. And as in this picture, don't put any lubricant on here because sometimes they're not non-spermicidal. And then you want to very gently insert the pipette into the bitch. You want to keep the bitch's hindquarter elevated for about 5 to 10 minutes. And then I try to keep the bitches from urinating for about an hour after the insemination because we don't want to wash all that sperm out. If she's traveling, put her in a crate, let her jump into the car herself. Don't put pressure on her abdomen. Crate her for an hour until you feel like the semen is probably adequately up into the uterus. Here's an example of how we elevate the bitch's hindquarters. We've got a small ramp, so we do that. I should be wearing gloves in this picture, and I'm not, so don't do that. But when I put the pipette in, I go upward at about a 45-degree angle and then forward. If you try to put it straight in, the bitch's reproductive tract does not run that direction. You need to go up. And then once you get in a couple of inches, go forward. If you meet resistance or the bitch seems uncomfortable, stop and reintroduce. You want to introduce the pipette at the very top of the opening of the vulva, not at the bottom. And then very gently put it in. And the bitch should stand nicely if she's well timed. She shouldn't fight you. And then we'll slowly put the semen into the bitch. And then if you see any backwash when you're doing it, stop, reposition the pipette and try it again. Then I'll feather her a little bit after we do the insemination. You can see this dog is kind of doing a hoochie cooch here. She is flagging, and that's what we expect to see when we have a bitch that's in standing heat that's been well timed. Like I said, I keep her hindquarters elevated and I travel her in a crate so that we keep the semen in her for as long as possible before she stops to urinate. All right. If you choose to do something other than vaginal insemination, you can do transcervical. That does not require anesthesia. It does require specialized equipment and special training for your veterinarian. Again, this is not inexpensive equipment, but it's a very nice way to do the insemination because it puts the semen directly into the bitch's uterus. This is my dog. This is me doing a TCI on my bitch. And then we can also do surgical AIs. If your veterinarian does not have TCI equipment and you wish to do a surgical, you can absolutely do a surgical insemination as well. So we always hope for the best. We want to have a nice big litter. This is one of my corgis that had a litter of 10. So we always wish for good fertility. There are no guarantees with fertility, but that's what we want for your outcomes, are really nice size litters. All right, so we do have our complete line of the Breeder's Edge products for our males. We have the Oxy Stud for any male dog. We have Get Him Going if he's got low libido. We have In Between, so between breeding seasons, that's a great product. And then if we've got fertility issues with him, Breeder's Edge Problem Male can be very helpful. We also have our entire list of other products. We have a whole female line. We have microchips and vaccines. We have all the supplies you need to have successful litters. So there's some really great products in this bundles that we have set up for you, so you don't forget any of the things you need.
I was going to mention the bundles are great because they're cheaper. You can save money by getting them as a bundle. So if you're getting these same products anyway, get them as a bundle.
Right. And it'll remind you of like the extra things, or when you call one of our phone people, our PCPs, and you say, well, I'm going to have a litter, they can go through this with you and say, well, do you have this? Do you have this? What do I need that for? And they can help you understand what you need so that you're well equipped. A lot of this stuff you can't get overnighted. So when you need it now. Order it in advance. Don't wait until you're in trouble. And of course, we have the book, Canine Reproduction and Neonatology. It does not have the iSperm in it because it's a fairly new piece of equipment, but it does have all the other information for how to collect semen, how to analyze it, how to package it and ship it, how to use frozen semen. There's a lot of great information in here. So if you don't already have a copy of that book, I would strongly encourage you to get one. It covers all things breeding, from screening your breeding stock through the heat cycle, through the breeding, through the pregnancy, through the whelping, through the C-section, through the neonatal care. The stud dog stuff's at the back, the last chapter. So there's a lot of great information in here. It is 500 pages. It looks like a lot of money for the book. It is A to Z, soup to nuts, everything you need for breeding dogs.
And again, if you have any questions, call a Revival Animal Care Specialist. You know, they work very closely with Dr. Greer. And so if you have a question, we will get to Q&A here momentarily. And so make sure to do that. I do see we have some Q&A questions. So let's start with Randy is wondering, what is the effective rate of fresh chilled versus frozen semen?
I'm assuming you mean pregnancy rate, and we're always going to get more females pregnant with fresh chilled than we are with frozen. Inherently, the semen is less stressed. It's living longer in the bitch's reproductive tract. So I would guess probably about a 10% higher pregnancy rate with fresh chilled. It does require some last minute scuffling around to get things done. But as far as the outcomes, it's worth it. And yes, if you have frozen semen and the only way you're going to get to the dog you want, because he's been dead for 20 years, is to use fresh or frozen semen, that's great. But if fresh semen is an option for you, if they say, well, do you want fresh or frozen? The answer should always be fresh.
Okay. I mean, that kind of, he's wondering also kind of as a follow-up, is there any data on chilled versus frozen in litter outcomes?
I don't think there's enough hard data for it. Probably AKC could help us with some of that, because they do track if people accurately reflect what they were using for semen, but there's some people who don't want to fill out the paperwork. So if they used frozen semen, they have to fill out AKC paperwork for frozen. So we have pretty good data on that. If they don't want to tell us that they use fresh chilled, they want to pretend that they just did a natural breeding or a side-by-side AI, AKC doesn't have any way to enforce that. So there are probably dogs that we think, based on the data sent to AKC for a litter registration, that we think we're done with fresh semen, but it was probably actually fresh chilled. So I don't have enough hard data on that, but I think it would be great to know. But I'm going to say it's always going to be higher with fresh, probably about 10% higher.
Okay. Somebody's wondering, how many degrees difference can semen and semen extender be apart from each other and not kill the semen?
I'd say probably 10, 15 degrees would be fine. But if you can have them both at relatively similar temperatures, it's just going to be a little bit easier on it. We have a slide warmer, so we just set our extender on the slide warmer, so we add that right away. But if you don't have a slide warmer, you could use a heating pad if it's on low. with a towel over it. You never want to microwave it. You never want to do anything that's real extreme. And you can just kind of feel the outside of the bottle of extender and the outside of the tube of semen. If they feel similar, you're fine. I wouldn't stick a thermometer in it to tell.
Okay. Anne says, you mentioned extend the semen with 4 times the extender, but she's wondering, how do you measure how much semen you've collected?
Well, if you're putting it into a pipette and a syringe, then you can just read how much is on the syringe. So that's what I would do is measure it in a syringe and just know. And again, make sure you're using those syringes without the black latex stopper in them. Use just the clear ones. And we do carry those at Revival. They're semen safe syringes.
Okay. Somebody's wondering also, is the extender, is it a 10-day extender? Or
I don't think ours have days on them. Minitube does put a number of days on theirs. I believe they're the only company that does. They are all going to last more than a day, but the semen quality, the age of the dog, the semen quality of the dog has a lot more to do with it than the type of extender. I've had dogs of my own that I have just for fun, just left them sitting in my garage for whatever reason in extender in cold temperatures. And I'll pull it out 10 days later and warm it up and the stuff's still swimming. So those extenders usually will last more than a day. I don't lose my mind over how many days it says on the extender, because honestly, they're all going to last more than a day if the semen quality is good.
okay. This is kind of similar to what you just answered. Randy is wondering, how long does fresh chilled semen last? Can I get one shipment for multiple days of insemination on my female, or do I need to have separate collections and shipments for each insemination?
The rule of thumb that most veterinarians that do repro say is once the semen arrives, put it in the bitch. Don't put half of it in the refrigerator and wait 3 days to put it in. Refrigerators don't get pregnant. Dogs do. So if you're getting a shipment, put it all in. If you want to do more than one shipment, go for it. I think 2 shipments is always a good idea, but it doubles your cost. So if you're really serious about extending how many days over which she has fresh semen put in her, then do 2 shipments. If you're thinking that saving it and saving the money to ship a second time by putting it in the refrigerator, don't. Just put it in the bitch. Put it in the bitch. Let her, that's the vessel that semen is meant to live in, the female, not the refrigerator.
Good advice. Christine is wondering, she's having to ship overseas to France. She's saying, is using fresh chilled possible, or would we need to do frozen in that situation?
Most people do frozen when they're shipping overseas because of customs, because the semen can get hung up in customs. So it depends on whether you're willing to take the chance. There's no promise that it's going to shoot right through customs. Sometimes it'll sit there. Sometimes it sits there so long that we're worried that the frozen semen tank isn't going to continue to hold. And those are 10-day tanks. So we get a little twitchy when we're starting to watch customs and the package is still hung up there. You can try fresh chilled and see if it gets there. And if it's not the end of the world that you miss on a breeding, I'd try it once just for fun and see if it works. Some countries are easier than others to get semen into. So do a little homework on what's going to work out best. Sometimes it's even hard to get into Canada. So it depends on who's working in customs that day.
Julie's wondering, what kind of tape is used to seal the tube?
My favorite isn't actually tape. It's called parafilm. It's a thin sheet of paraffin. I did have a picture of it in one of the slides. It's a very thin sheet of paraffin, and I think it's really fun. A lot of people used it in chemistry labs if they took chemistry at some point in their life. So it's this box sitting back here that's blue. It comes in sheets and you can cut it and it stretches, and it's because it's paraffin. So we lost it. Because it's paraffin, it's stretchy and it seals really nice. You just heat it with your hand for a second and it seals really nice. If you don't have that, any kind of tape you have is fine. That's got a little stretch to it. Stretchier tape is better than unstretchy tape.
Okay. Somebody's wondering, what is the ideal temperature in the shipping container for shipping semen? Is there an ideal temp?
Nobody ever takes the temperature because we don't have a way to track that. So just what the chilled pack will do, somewhere between freezing and hot is the best answer I can give you. So we don't want it frozen, and we've had semen shipments come in through UPS, FedEx, the Postal Service when the weather's extreme and it has frozen in the box. Frozen semen that wasn't meant to be frozen doesn't thaw well. It's going to end up dead. So we just want it to be somewhere between 40 and 80 degrees.
Okay, Brittany is wondering, do you recommend fresh blueberries to help with sperm count?
I don't know if anybody's ever researched fresh blueberries. We've got a lot of good information on our supplements, but I don't know that blueberries have ever been researched specifically on humans or dogs. So it's not going to hurt anything. They taste good. Why not?
Are there any supplements that you would recommend that do help with sperm count, I guess?
Yeah, we've got, like I said earlier, we've got these really nice ones. If we have low libido in our males, we can use get them going. If we're just looking at some good nutritional support, the Oxy Stud or the in between is a great product. Just to give him the nutrition he needs for good support. And as far as diet goes, I either feed Purina Sport 3020 or Royal Canin HT42D, which is technically a pregnancy diet, but it does have some nice anti-inflammatory effects for the male dogs if we're seeing poor semen quality. Those are the two diets that we recommend along with the supplements.
Okay. Allison says, I breed bulldogs. She's wondering, would you recommend using extender for dog-to-dog AI? Will it help sperm live longer and result in a larger litter size, more fertilizations?
Yeah, we use extended semen on almost every bitch that we breed, whether it's fresh or fresh chilled. So yes, and if you've got semen that arrives and it looks kind of bleh, sometimes we'll spin it down and add fresh extender to it. There's some goodies in the extender that they don't even tell us what's in there, and that'll liven it back up. So if the semen looks a little sluggish on arrival, we add fresh extender, spin it, get rid of the old extender, add fresh extender, and oftentimes that'll boost it enough. Or even if it's first ejaculated and it doesn't look good, we'll add extender and look again, because it's interesting how much of a boost that extender can give to the semen. So yes, short story is yes, add extender.
Okay. Brenda's wondering, what is the shelf life of the extender once purchased? How far in advance should you purchase it?
I would look at the website. We have on all of our products on Revival. If you click on the product for expiration date, it'll take you to a page that's got a spreadsheet and it'll tell you what the current inventory has for expiration dates. I can't tell you because it changes, inventory changes. So just take a look at our website. It'll take you there.
Okay. Somebody, I think a lot of people are kind of surprised in a way. You mentioned how that gel pack should be chilled and not frozen. I think a lot of people think, oh, it's supposed to be frozen. Can you explain a little bit why you'd want it refrigerated and chilled and not frozen?
Because frozen is too cold. And if you freeze the semen, it's going to be dead when it arrives. So chill the gel pack, do not freeze it. Follow the instructions on the package.
Okay. Lisa is wondering, determining the size of the insemination tube. She has an English setter. Like, is there any advice you have for determining what size you'd want for your
the
dog?
pipette, I usually use pipettes that are 8 to 10 inches long, and then you don't have to put them in all the way. It depends on the size of the bitch. We do have itty bitty teeny weeny little mini ones for our toy breeds, but in general, the 6 to 8 to 10 inch AI pipette is the standard size. It's about this long. And they have a little soft, flexible piece that you can add the syringe to so that there's flexibility as the female's moving around. You're not causing any damage to her. So just use the regular pipettes that we carry.
Brittany mentioned she has a female that gets pregnant naturally every time, but even hitting great progesterone numbers, she never gets pregnant when they use AI. Do some females just not take it that way?
Yeah, if you're using extender stop, if you're not using extender start, I don't know if she's had pregnancies with natural breedings. We always see a higher percentage of bitches getting pregnant with natural breedings. If you've been just doing vaginal AIs, either go to a surgical AI or a TCI if you want to continue to use extended semen. There are some bitches that they just do better with natural breeding. There's a tie, there's a force of the ejaculate. There are definitely reasons that semen propels better into the bitch's reproductive tract than if we put it in with a pipette. So if you're struggling with it, just use naturals. We see higher percentages with natural breedings. AKC shows us that. We know that information from AKC paperwork.
Somebody's wondering about do you have any advice, I guess, as far as locating local reproductive vets and semen storage facilities? Like, is there a resource available to to
That
people?
is such a great question. Yes, if you go to therio.org, so Therio stands for theriogenology, Therio. So therio.org. There's a link on our website for Therio that says find a vet, and you put in your zip code, the species. So if you're looking at canine, feline, equine, whatever, and then you put in what procedures you're looking for, it does a search for you. Now, I'm not really good with using it because if I don't know, when you live in Dallas, Texas, I mean, Dallas is huge. Like there's all kinds of suburbs. I can't look up every suburb for you, but if you know where you are geographically, you can very easily find those things. And it is a wonderful resource for trying to find a veterinarian that'll be willing to work with you. And it'll just list what, if you want a TCI, if you want whatever, you just put in what procedures you're looking for and it'll bring that up for you. It's a great resource.
We've had actually a couple people ask about the ShipMate product for semen shipping. They've used that in the past. What are your thoughts on that versus what you've mentioned here?
I've never used it. I don't know. I
Okay.
know what I use and I know what works.
Okay, that works. Allison is wondering, could you estimate how much incremental value there is to getting 2 shipments during a breeding window?
I don't think anybody's looked at that. I think the longer period of time over which the bitch is exposed to semen, the better. But I don't think anyone has ever sat down and said, if we do 1 breeding, we get this. If we do 2 breedings, we get what percentage more. More is always better. But I don't think anybody's got the data on that. We should. It'd be nice to have some nice graduate student be willing to look at some of the numbers that people have in their practices.
Bruce is wondering how much extender to add to fresh semen if the sperm is slow. He's wondering, is the Kenny skim milk extender with antibiotics you recommended, and does it come with instructions on how much to add?
Yeah, it's 1 to 2 to 1 to 4. So if you've got 1 cc of semen, you add 2 to 4 cc's of extender. More extender isn't necessarily going to be better for you, but you might want to ship some extra in the box so that if they want to add fresh extender on arrival, they could do that if they don't have their own extender. Now, if you're shipping to a vet clinic that does repro, they're going to have extender. If you're shipping to a breeder that doesn't, then ship some fresh extender along, not mixed with the semen, but in a separate tube.
Again, we thank you all for joining us today. I'm Shelley, the content manager with Revival Animal Health, and thank you, Dr. Greer, again, for sharing all of your amazing knowledge with us.
Thanks. It's always fun to be here. So we'll see you next time.
Hi, if you're watching on YouTube, consider subscribing to the Revival Animal Health YouTube channel. If you have a pet health question, call our pet care pros at this number, and don't miss our other pet health videos.